Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? It's Matt here from YoVideogames, and now that Comic-Con 2014 has come and gone, I'm here to tell you about all the awesome games we got some hands-on time at the show. One of the most pleasant surprises for me was entering the Xbox Gaming Lounge and discovering that they had a playable hands-on build of The Evil Within, something I missed out on at E3 this year. Now, The Evil Within is a game by Tango Gameworks and is the last game to be directed by the studio's founder, Shinji Mikami. Shinji Mikami used to work at Capcom. He created and founded the original Resident Evil game, was a producer on Resident Evil 2, and was sort of a series overseer for Resident Evil 3, Code Veronica, and Zero. He came back and directed Resident Evil 4 as well as Resident Evil Remake. After Resident Evil 4, though, he left the company shortly after finishing work on God Hand and has not created a survival horror title ever since. Now, the Resident Evil fanbase is pretty divided. Some say Remake is the best game and some say 4 is the best game. Both of them are directed by the same person, and The Evil Within looks to sort of try to bring those two philosophies of game design together. The question is, does it actually work, or is it more or less another Revelations case? The game takes place in an insane asylum in the 80s, and it's thematically built around the perception of reality and what is the definition of sanity. Now, this might not be something entirely new to game development, but it does work well here and does serve its purpose. The game demo we were able to try out at Comic-Con was set in Chapter 8, which I've been told is roughly about halfway through the game. The level takes place in a mansion, very reminiscent of the one from Remake, and it's no surprise that the lead environmental artist on Resident Evil Remake is the lead environmental artist on this game. Now, they don't look like they're carbon copies of each other, but they look very close. I have to say this right out the gate, though. I was playing on an Xbox One, and it does look graphically rough and does have some chugging frame rate issues. Now, this is the E3 build, and I've been told by Bethesda employees that they've already made changes and improvements since then, but the one on the show floor was simply from last month. That being said, I think what people will quickly get over when they're actually playing the game themselves is that the game looks great. The atmosphere and art direction is phenomenal, just that the graphical and technical limitations of the title, especially being cross-gen, do show up very frequently. But enough about that. The real question is it survival horror? Is it scary? That's probably going to depend on the person, but I think it succeeds mostly in being scary and atmospheric. Of course, you do want to play this game alone in the dark with headsets. They had a unique setup where we were in this sort of closed-off booth with black walls all around us, and we were using Turtle Beach headsets. Now, they weren't as loud as I would have liked them to be personally, but it did help bring out the tension and scariness while playing the title. The mansion has a giant door in the center foyer lobby area that you have to open. To open it, you have to find these 3 hidden pumps hidden throughout the mansion. The pumps are connected to these human heads that are still alive by electromagnetic pulses, and you basically have to solve a simple puzzle of lobotomizing these brains that are exposed to pump the blood into the door, which will open it and let you continue on your way. It sounds pretty creepy and gross, and yeah, it is. As you go through the mansion, you will notice that the villain of the game actually appears frequently, sort of like Mr. X or Nemesis in a very similar fashion. When he does appear, the game goes into a sort of blue monochrome mode, and he can apparently seem to appear behind doors and hallways in front of you, even though you just saw him and you turned and ran away. So he's got this sort of like you never know where he's going to appear. In the game demo, if he grabs you, he takes you down to 1 HP, or, basically like no life left on your life bar. It looks very similar to Resident Evil 4's life bar. In the final game, I'm told that if he does catch up with you, it's an instant kill. So it's a very tense situation because you'll see him coming down after you down a hallway, you turn and run away, you go into another room, and all of a sudden he's in the room. So you basically are constantly kept on your toes. It's a very fun dynamic, and I think fans of Resident Evil 2 and 3 are going to really appreciate it. As for the general enemies, there's not a whole lot in the mansion, and each one of them is kind of a big deal when you do run into them. They're not zombies, but they're insane asylum inmates. Their eyes do sort of glow blue, and you kind of are always questioning whether or not what you're seeing in the game is real or not. They're not like zombies in that they'll shuffle after you. They're not like speed demons. These are not World War Z, or they're not Dawn of the Dead remake crack zombies either. They are human, but they're clearly insane. They'll hunt you, they'll look for you, they'll open doors, stuff like that. So you might walk into a room where you pick up a full health kit, and you'll hear a door slam behind you, and there'll be 2 zombies who are patrolling the rooms looking for you. And if they see you, of course they come after you. Maybe not at a full sprint, but they definitely chug along after you faster than a zombie would. Your weapons in the game are in the demo at least, were limited to a pistol, a shotgun, and a bow gun. Now, the pistol and shotgun worked as you would think they would. The aiming reticule was a little big and obnoxious, but who knows if that's going to stay in the main game. Your aiming was surprisingly not that great. I mean, you could try to line up a shot as best you could, but Sebastian, the main character in the game, doesn't exactly have the laser precision arm that Leon Kennedy did in RE4. Maybe this is sort of a throwback to the remake style of aiming, where it's like, yeah, you're going to hit the guy, but maybe he's not going to instantly die or flinch and grab his leg, letting you run up and kick him and knife him to death. So it doesn't have that aspect to it. It does have an aspect from Remake where you have a box of matches, and if you do get an enemy or an inmate on the ground, you can light a match and throw it on top of them and burn him to death. And enemies will play dead in this game. That's kind of a unique thing, I think, where the enemy you think is dead, he's not moving, he's been immobile for a little bit, and all of a sudden he'll get back up or he'll grab you as you walk by. So you definitely want to burn these guys just like you want to do the zombies in Resident Evil Remake. I don't know if there's any Crimson Head aspect to it, but there you go. You can also find tools and traps throughout the mansion. Now, the tools you can use to make different darts for your bowgun. The bowgun has an extremely limited range, so it's not like, say, something maybe in Tomb Raider where it's like you want to use the bow because the bow's really awesome, and Lara Croft has this amazing, like, pro athlete arm. No, the bow gun, it doesn't go very far. You can make explosive bolts and electric bolts. And another way you can make explosive bolts is disarming traps. Throughout the mansion, you'll notice these weird sort of goofy red mines, and if you walk by them, they motion activate and blow you up. You can use this to try to get enemies to walk in them, of course, or you can sneak up under them and disarm them and turn the parts of the bomb or the mine into a bowgun bomb. So that's kind of neat and interesting in itself. As far as ammo stock, it was pretty limited. There really wasn't a whole lot. I would say there was about on par with Remake amount of ammo that you could find anywhere given in the mansion. The game does have a third-person over-the-shoulder perspective, so this is Remake by way of Resident Evil 4's camera. I don't know if you're that much of a purist. If you really want the static camera angles, you're not going to get it here. You're not going to get tank controls. It controls like RE4. However, stealth is now a major mechanic of the game. In the E3 build that I played, you have to hold down the RB button to go into stealth mode. That's been changed according to Bethesda. Now it's a toggle, so you just tap it once and Sebastian will go into stealth mode, and you tap it again and he comes right out of it. In this game, is basically hold it down so he'll be hunched over and walking kind of roadie run style. It does have a little bit of Last of Us blood in it where you can pick up bottles and throw them to distract enemies. Again, these enemies are insane people. They're not zombies, so they're not just going to be like, oh, blood, or human flesh, let me go towards that no matter what. So you can distract them. You can get them to run into bombs. There is that element of stealth and distraction in the game as well. I didn't get too far into the game, but I did pick up some files. And yeah, the files and story and background throughout the game is super, super reminiscent of Remake. It's very, very much in the same style of writing, same sort of tone. It's really weird and creepy and fucked up, but it's still talking about scientists and their desire to basically break the bounds of science and moral ethical code and stuff like that. So I think if you're into that aspect of the game, yeah, you're really going to dig it. I think taking place in the 80s is another good call because there's no cell phones, there's none of this GPS, there's no bullshit from modern era that would totally ruin a survival horror game. So that's nice too. But again, like, the game does play on eternal darkness levels as well. So you might be walking down a pathway and all of a sudden the game will flash in front of you and then it turns into a completely different area of the game. Like, you may be walking down the forest and all of a sudden it turns into the hallway of the asylum, all concrete walls, and you'd have no idea how that just happened. So it seems as you're playing the game, you're constantly going insane or bouncing between realities. It's hard to really tell what's going on or what's really real. So you're going to be constantly questioning yourself all throughout the title. Hopefully that plays into a good mechanic and not just one for kind of like cheap thrills. Eternal Darkness, while great, you did kind of know when you were going insane because your sanity meter was built up. This game doesn't seem to have that. It seems like you're constantly going to be questioning whether or not what you're walking into is there or not. But it doesn't really matter because you still have to play the game like any other video game. It never forgets that fact. So at the end of the day, does survival horror return with the evil within? I say from what I've seen, it sure does. However, I was told that the game does like to mix it up a bit. There are other sequences of the game that are more reminiscent of RE4 and some remnants of the game that are more puzzle-based. The game's built into chapters as well, so we were playing Chapter 8, and that was a little more puzzle-heavy, a little mix of both in that one. But some things will be almost all puzzle-based, some things will be all stealth-based, some things will be a shootout, or close to a shootout, I should say. You can see footage of that as if you look around on YouTube. While it doesn't seem like it's going to be a complete, this is just remake from over the shoulder, it's basically taking the aspects of various different survival horror games over the years and kind of trying to build its own sort of thing with it. I think it works. I think the environment art is fantastic. I think the controls are just fine, and I am really digging where the story's going, at least from the little snippet I got. If you are a survival horror fan, if you are a Resident Evil fan, but not so purist that you need tank controls and you need static camera angles, if you're not that purist but you are a fan of Resident Evil, I think you're really going to dig it. I think the chapter I played takes a huge steaming dump on all of RE6. This game looks to basically take what was missing from the survival horror aspect of Resident Evil for many years and is now bringing it back. And I think fans of the genre should really look out for this title come October, which is of course a great month to release it. So that's all I have to say on Evil Within. Let me know what you guys think about any of our other Comic-Con footage. I attended many panels, not just video game related, so let me know if you would like to hear about some of the other stuff that's maybe not quite video game related or not, and I'll see if I'll make a video about that stuff. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I hope you're looking forward to more stuff we got coming. Later, dudes!